My wife said, "It's not cheating if it's online." Then I caught them in our bedroom. I used to think that the internet was harmless, that it was a space for distraction, not destruction. My wife, Lila, made her living streaming, so it felt natural that half her life unfolded online. When I came home from late shifts at the logistics firm, I'd find her laughing through her headset, surrounded by glowing monitors, her voice bright and teasing as she played. Sometimes, she'd wave at me midstream, mouthing that she'd be done soon. That soon turned into hours, then nights, then whole weekends. At first, I didn't mind. I was proud of her. She'd built a small following, made sponsorship deals, even got invited to conventions. It was fun to see her succeed at something creative while I worked regular hours. But over time, her world began to look less like a hobby and more like an alternate reality, one that didn't need me. It started with small changes. She began locking her office door when she streamed. She wore makeup for her sessions, even though she used to stream in hoodies. She started saying things like, "You wouldn't get it. It's just a streaming thing." Her phone never left her hand, and whenever it buzzed, she'd turn the screen down. Her favorite collaborator was someone named Jaden. At first, I thought it was just another username, one of those online handles people pick at random. But she mentioned him constantly. Jaden and I are working on a new highlight reel. Jaden helped me set up my new audio filters. Jaden says I should get a better webcam. It felt harmless in the beginning, until I noticed she laughed differently when talking to him. Soft, private, the kind of laugh she used to reserve for me. I didn't say anything. I told myself I was overthinking it. We'd been together for 5 years, married for 2. We'd gone through tougher things, money issues, family drama, my late nights at work. We always found our way back. So I waited. Then one evening, around 2 a.m., I woke up and found her bed empty. Her office light was on. Through the crack in the door, I saw her with her headset off, but camera still on, whispering to someone on the screen. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but she looked softer. Not like when she joked with her fans. It was the look of someone who felt seen. She giggled, said something about next time, then turned off the stream. When she noticed me standing there, she jumped. She laughed it off, saying I scared her. Claimed she was just rehearsing dialogue for a skit. I didn't argue. I told her to get some sleep and went back to bed, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted permanently. A week later, she started buying things without mentioning them. New lighting gear, a high-end camera lens, and one transaction that caught my eye, a $420 charge labeled Nexus Grand Suites. I thought it was fraud, so I asked about it casually the next morning while making coffee. She barely blinked. Said it was a group booking for an online creator meetup. Apparently, her whole community was chipping in for content. I didn't push. I just nodded, poured her a cup, and smiled like I believed her. But when she left for the gym later that day, I checked the location of the hotel, downtown, less than a 30-minute drive away. I didn't want to be the paranoid husband who checks his wife's accounts, but the pattern didn't lie. She was home less, streaming longer, and often too tired afterward. When she was in bed, she kept her phone face down, and sometimes I'd hear the faint ping of incoming messages past midnight. I tried to talk to her about us. She brushed it off, saying I was being clingy. Told me I didn't understand the streaming world, that I was acting insecure. It was strange hearing those words from her, because insecurity had never been my issue. But the way she said it, like she was already somewhere else, hit deeper than any argument could. That's when I started noticing other things. The front door lock seemed tampered with, as if someone had tried forcing it once. Our spare bedroom window latch was broken. The living room smelled faintly of men's cologne one afternoon when I got home early. I convinced myself it was her brother visiting, or a delivery guy brushing past her perfume. But the signs kept stacking, and logic became harder to defend. Out of practical concern, not jealousy, or at least that's what I told myself, I installed a small security camera in the living room. It wasn't even hidden. I put it on a shelf facing the front door. I travel occasionally for work, and I figured it would make sense to keep an eye on things while I was away. When I mentioned it to her, she didn't object, just rolled her eyes and said, "You're turning into one of those people who thinks the world's spying on them." She said it playfully, but her tone had an edge. That same night, while she was streaming, I sat in the hallway outside her office listening to the muffled sound of her voice. It wasn't the same as before. There was something more intimate in the rhythm. Less about games, more about plans. She laughed, lowered her voice, then said something about, "Next time we meet." I wanted to burst in, but something stopped me. Maybe fear, maybe denial. I went to bed instead, pretending not to notice that she didn't join me until dawn. 2 nights later, she suggested we take a break from heavy talks. Said her work needed focus. I agreed, even though I knew that was code for I need space to hide something. She started locking her office completely, changed her phone password, moved her streaming schedule to overlap with my work hours. It was subtle, methodical, like she'd planned it. Then one weekend, while doing our taxes, I noticed she'd made 2 payments under a new platform name, Pixel Halo. It wasn't listed among her regular sponsorships. When I checked the website, it redirected to a private subscription service with her username attached. I didn't want to imagine what kind of content she was sharing, but the subscription fees and the timing told enough of the story. That night, I confronted her. Calmly, I asked why she needed a new platform, one that didn't match her usual brand. She laughed, saying, "It's just online stuff. It's not cheating if it's digital. You're overreacting." I didn't even know what to say. The sentence hung in the air like smoke from a fire that had already burned through the foundation. It's not cheating if it's online. That line kept looping in my head like static. I slept on the couch that night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd missed the moment when our marriage switched from real to virtual. Somewhere between a live stream and a lie, she'd found a way to justify what she was doing. And the worst part was, she actually believed it. The next morning, she acted normal, made breakfast, smiled, but her eyes never met mine. She left for her collab meeting, and I sat there, silent, staring at my untouched coffee. I decided that if she was going to blur the line between online and real life, I'd make sure to bring it back into focus. That's when I opened my laptop and began checking the security footage. I didn't know what I was looking for until I saw movement near the front door, time-stamped 11:37 p.m. the previous night. Someone had come in after I'd fallen asleep. A figure, male, tall, carrying a bag. Lila followed behind him, glancing once at the camera before reaching up and covering the lens. That was the moment I stopped lying to myself. Something was happening right under my roof, and it wasn't just online. The next few days moved like clockwork, routine on the surface, unease underneath. Lila seemed lighter somehow, like a person who'd made peace with a secret. She hummed while cooking, lingered in front of the mirror, and kept her phone always within reach. Every vibration made her flinch. I could tell she was trying to act normal, but she'd forgotten that patterns give people away more than words ever do. I worked nights that week, a schedule she knew well. It used to make her anxious when I was gone, but now she barely noticed. On Wednesday, I got home around 2:30 a.m. The house was quiet, the way it should have been, but the air felt different, warm, heavy, and faintly scented with cologne again. The same one I'd smelled before. I checked the living room camera feed first. Nothing out of place. Then I remembered I'd adjusted the camera's angle a few days earlier to catch more of the hallway. When I reviewed the footage, there was nothing for most of the night, until the motion alert at 12:09 a.m. The screen showed the front door opening slowly. Lila stepped inside, followed by a tall man wearing a baseball cap. She glanced at the camera, smiled faintly, then reached up and unplugged it. The feed cut there. I didn't sleep at all that night. I just sat on the couch, motionless, staring at the blank television screen. By morning, I'd made up my mind to confront her. When she woke up, she acted surprised to see me home early. Said she thought I was working another shift. I told her I'd switched schedules. She laughed, awkwardly, and asked if I wanted breakfast. I told her no, and asked who she brought home last night. She froze for half a second, barely perceptible, but enough. Then she recovered and said, "What are you talking about?" I mentioned the camera. She shrugged, said maybe I saw an old clip or glitch. When I pressed again, she sighed and rolled her eyes, like I was a child refusing to drop a toy argument. "Ryan," she said, "you can't keep spying on me. It's not healthy. You're taking things out of context. You know I work with people online. Sometimes we meet in person to collaborate. That doesn't mean I'm doing anything wrong." I asked why she turned off the camera then. She looked at me calmly, like she had rehearsed the answer. "Because I don't like being monitored in my own home. It's invasive." There was something chilling about how she said my own home. Not ours. Hers. I didn't yell. Didn't accuse. I just told her I wanted space. She nodded, as if relieved, and said she'd spend the night at her friend Maya's place. I let her go, but before she left, she made one more dig. "You're too obsessed with evidence. Sometimes you just have to trust people." That line stuck with me long after she closed the door. That evening, I decided to verify her story. I texted Maya, nothing personal, just a casual check-in. Maya replied fast, friendly, unaware of the storm she'd stepped into. She said she hadn't seen Lila in weeks. I sat there staring at that message, the truth settling like ice in my chest. I opened the security app again, checking the timestamp of the previous night. Then I noticed something I'd missed earlier. The camera system had registered another reconnect at 2:14 a.m. after being unplugged for about 2 hours, which meant whoever she brought in had already left by then. When she got home the next morning, I asked how her sleepover went. She smiled, said it was nice to catch up with friends, though she looked exhausted. Her hair was damp, not from a shower but from humidity, outside air, night air. I wanted to ask more, but I didn't. Instead, I installed another camera, this time hidden, a small one tucked into a smoke detector casing near the stairs. I hated myself for doing it, but I needed to stop wondering. I needed facts. That night, I worked another late shift. At 11:58 p.m., my phone buzzed. Ring alert. Motion detected. Front door. I stepped into the break room and opened the feed. There she was. Same jacket, same smile, same man behind her. This time, I got a clearer view of him. The hat was gone. He was maybe mid-30s, confident, wearing a hoodie from a gaming convention Lila had attended last month. They kissed as soon as they stepped in. Not a quick peck. The kind of kiss people reserve for someone they've been waiting all day to see. Then she said something I'll never forget. She whispered, "We can't go upstairs yet. The camera's probably still on." He chuckled. "You really think he checks every night?" She smiled. "Not anymore. He's too busy at work." I froze, watching my life reduced to pixels and deceit. I should have confronted them right then, but instead, I kept watching. She led him toward the kitchen, poured wine, and laughed like she hadn't in months. It was strange how casual betrayal can look when seen through a screen. Like a sitcom without a laugh track. They disappeared upstairs. I didn't need to see more. At 12:30, I told my manager I was sick and left early. I didn't even remember the drive home. I parked down the street, walked silently across the yard, and used my spare key to slip inside. The house was dim, lights off except for a faint glow coming from under the bedroom door. I heard laughter, low voices, the sound of the bed creaking. My heartbeat drowned out everything else. For a few seconds, I considered walking away, pretending I never knew. Maybe let her have her secret life while I quietly planned my exit. But then I remembered the years I spent building that home, the overtime hours, the way she once promised that honesty mattered more than anything. I pushed the door open. The laughter stopped instantly. The room smelled like sweat and perfume. Lila turned, startled, clutching the blanket. The man, Jaden, I realized now that I'd seen his face from her streams, stood up halfway, fumbling for his clothes. No one said anything. He muttered something about leaving, but I blocked the doorway. I didn't touch him, didn't raise my voice. Just told him to get out. He brushed past me, avoiding eye contact, and within seconds, the sound of the front door echoed down the hall. Lila sat there, pale and trembling, but still trying to stay composed. She said something about me being dramatic. Claimed I'd misunderstood the situation. I told her I'd seen enough. She snapped back, saying I had no right to snoop, that what she did online or off wasn't my business because it started as content. That word, content, was her excuse for everything. Before she could say more, a knock hit the door downstairs. Hard. A neighbor had heard the argument and called the police. When the officers arrived, Lila tried to twist the story, saying I'd broken and angry. But one look at the marriage certificate on the wall and the camera feed on my phone cleared things up. The officers asked if anyone was hurt. I said no. They told us to cool off and left. Lila packed a small bag that night. Said she needed clarity. As she left, she turned back once and muttered, "You never understood what I needed." Then she was gone. The silence after the door closed felt heavier than any argument we'd ever had. I walked back upstairs and saw the unmade bed, the scattered clothes, the half-finished wine glass on the nightstand. In the camera footage, I saw her laughing just hours before, and it made something inside me switch off. That night, I deleted every saved clip except one, the footage of her walking in with him. I didn't know why I kept it. Maybe as proof. Maybe as closure. Whatever it was, I knew this wasn't over. Because people who justify betrayal rarely stop at one lie. And I was about to find out how deep hers really went. I didn't sleep that night. The walls felt thinner somehow, the silence heavier. Every creak in the house reminded me that someone else had been there just hours ago. By morning, the sheets still smelled faintly like a stranger. I stripped the bed, threw everything into garbage bags, and took them straight to the dumpster behind the store down the street. I couldn't stand the sight of them. For the next few days, I went through the motions. Work, eat, pretend. But something in me was unraveling. Every noise, every flicker of my phone light felt like a test of restraint. I didn't tell anyone at first. Not my coworkers, not even my brother, who'd have driven straight to her new place if he knew. On the third night after she left, I got a text from Lila. We should talk. No apology. No context. Just that. I agreed to meet her in public, a cafe near her old gym. She arrived late, dressed like she'd stepped out of one of her streams. Perfect hair, cropped jacket, and that same look she used when she wanted to control a narrative. She started talking before she even sat down. She said what happened was complicated. That Jaden and she had connected emotionally first. That their physical relationship just happened. She claimed it was a form of creative intimacy. I didn't even know what that meant. She tried to soften it by saying I was too grounded, while she was too curious. I asked if she loved him. She looked away. Didn't answer. That was enough. I told her I was filing for divorce. Her expression changed instantly. Shock, then anger. She said I was overreacting, that she hadn't technically cheated because it started online. That phrase again, recycled like it could erase everything that came after. I stood up, told her I'd send her the papers, and left before she could spin another version of reality. 2 days later, I came home from work to find the front door unlocked. My stomach dropped. Inside, lights were on, music playing low. And there she was, Lila, standing in the kitchen as if she'd never left. She smiled faintly, holding a stack of envelopes. You changed the Wi-Fi password, she said. I needed to upload something. I told her she couldn't just walk in. She shrugged, said her name was still on the lease. Then, as if we were having a normal evening, she poured herself a drink. I tried to stay calm, but the situation was too surreal. I told her she could take what she needed and leave. She didn't move. Instead, she leaned against the counter and said, "You know, Jaden and I broke up. He wasn't who I thought he was." There was a tremor in her voice, a mix of anger and humiliation. I didn't care to ask why, but then she added something that made me pause. He recorded things. Without me knowing. I froze. What kind of things? She didn't answer right away. Then she said quietly, "Everything." She looked terrified now, genuinely. She explained that Jaden had been saving all their private video calls, including the ones that blurred the line between streaming and other things. He'd threatened to release them unless she paid him to stay quiet. It was disgusting, but not surprising. She'd chosen someone who lived for attention. I told her to go to the police. She refused, said it would ruin her image, that people wouldn't believe her. I could tell she wasn't worried about justice. She was worried about exposure. That's when I realized how far gone she really was. The conversation ended with her crying quietly in the corner of the kitchen. I didn't feel pity, just exhaustion. I handed her the divorce draft and told her it was non-negotiable. She took it, nodded, and left without another word. For the first time in weeks, I thought it might actually be over. But I was wrong. 3 nights later, around midnight, the doorbell rang. I checked the camera. No one there. Then I saw something moving near the side window. A shadow. I grabbed a flashlight and opened the door, stepping out onto the porch. Jaden stood there. Up close, he looked worse than he had on camera. Red eyes, unshaven, jittery like he hadn't slept in days. He smiled faintly and said, "You must be Ryan." I told him to leave before I called the cops. He laughed. "Relax, man. I just wanted to talk. She told you everything, right?" I didn't answer. He smirked. "She's crazy. Told me she deleted the clips, but she lied. You'd be surprised how much people pay for drama like that." Something inside me snapped. I stepped forward, told him he had 10 seconds to get off my property. He raised his hands mockingly and said, "Touch me, and I'll sue. Or maybe I'll just sell your wife's little videos first." I swung before he finished the sentence. The punch landed harder than I meant it to, and he stumbled back, hitting the porch rail. For a moment, I thought he'd go down. Instead, he spat blood, grinned, and said, "You're just as bad as her." Then he walked off, clutching his lip, muttering something about posting the truth. The next morning, my phone exploded with messages. Screenshots from Lila's followers, snippets of leaked footage circulating online. Nothing graphic, but enough to ruin her reputation completely. Clips of her whispering to him during streams, private voice notes, and messages where she trashed me, calling me boring, safe, a placeholder. Her sponsors dropped her within hours. The comment sections turned into chaos. She tried to defend herself, claiming Jaden had manipulated everything. But once something goes public, explanations don't matter. That evening, she showed up again, this time banging on my door, sobbing, begging to come inside. She said she had nowhere to go, that people were sending her threats. I let her in, not out of sympathy, but because I wanted to end it cleanly. I told her I'd help her contact a lawyer, nothing more. She thanked me between tears, kept repeating that she'd lost everything. But she wasn't crying for what she'd done. She was crying because her mask had finally cracked in front of everyone else. Over the next few days, things got worse for her. Jaden went silent online, but the damage was done. Her income vanished. Her followers turned on her, and one of her former sponsors filed a claim for breach of conduct. She called me constantly, sometimes apologizing, sometimes blaming me for abandoning her when she needed support. I told her the truth. I hadn't abandoned her. She'd walked out long before I caught her. She moved out officially a week later. Took her computer setup, her ring light, her streaming gear, everything that used to define her world. I watched from the window as she loaded her car. She looked smaller somehow, like the person she'd built online had evaporated, leaving only the fragile shell underneath. After she left, I went upstairs and noticed she'd forgotten a small hard drive on the desk. Out of habit, I checked what was on it: backups, recordings, all her content archives. But buried deep in one folder was a file labeled Draft Apology. It was a video. In it, Lila looked directly into the camera, her face bare, voice trembling. She admitted everything. How the online affair started as flirting, how it escalated into something she thought was digital love, and how she justified it by saying it wasn't real. But then she said something that struck me. I wanted someone to make me feel like I mattered more than the algorithm. I just picked the wrong person. I closed the file and unplugged the drive. I didn't delete it, but I didn't watch it again either. That night, I sat on the porch, listening to the distant hum of traffic. For the first time in months, the house felt quiet in a good way. But deep down, I knew the story wasn't finished. People like Jaden didn't disappear easily. And people like Lila didn't take accountability. They looked for new ways to survive. I was about to find out what that meant, because the next morning, a police car pulled up outside my house. The officer stepped out and said, "Mr. Walker, we need to talk about an assault complaint." The officer's words landed with the weight of a door slamming shut. "An assault complaint," he repeated, notebook in hand. His tone was professional but cold. "Filed by a Mr. Jaden Cross." I stood in the doorway, gripping the frame. The name didn't surprise me. The timing did. Less than a week had passed since the night on the porch. "He showed up at my house," I said. "Trespassing. Threatening me." The officer nodded slightly. "We'll get to that. But first, tell me exactly what happened." I explained everything. The confrontation, the punch, the threats. He listened, expression unreadable, then asked if there were cameras outside. I told him yes, that I still had the footage. When I pulled it up, the video spoke for itself. Jaden entering my property uninvited, his aggressive stance, me telling him to leave, and finally, the shove that sent him stumbling back. The officer watched in silence, then closed his notebook. "We'll make a note of it. But until it's reviewed, you're technically under investigation for misdemeanor assault. You'll get a notice to appear." It wasn't an arrest, but it was enough to make my stomach turn. As he left, he added, "I'd suggest you avoid contact with both parties involved, especially your ex-wife." The moment the cruiser pulled away, I felt the weight of something worse than betrayal: humiliation. The man who destroyed my marriage was now dragging my name through mud, and legally, I couldn't even retaliate. By evening, I received an email from HR at work. "Administrative leave pending investigation." The words blurred on the screen. Someone, probably Lila, had mentioned my violent outburst online. I checked her account. She hadn't posted directly, but she'd liked comments from fans calling me abusive and toxic. It was clever. She didn't lie outright. She just let the rumor breathe. 2 days later, my lawyer called. He said Jaden's medical report listed minor concussion and dental damage. That meant possible restitution, maybe even charges. But there was one saving grace. The footage showed him trespassing. If I filed my own report, it'd likely cancel out his claim. So I did. I drove to the precinct with a copy of the video, time-stamped and clear. The detective on duty, a tired man with dark circles under his eyes, watched the whole thing and sighed. "Looks like he baited you," he said. "But we'll forward it to the DA. Don't engage with him or her anymore." That night, I went home, poured a drink, and turned off every notification on my phone. For the first time in months, I wanted complete silence. But silence never lasts long in the digital world. The next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from friends, old coworkers, even people I barely knew. Links to a new Reddit thread titled "Streamer Exposes Abusive Husband." The thumbnail was a photo of me, one from our wedding, smiling. The caption read, "He hit my friend after months of controlling his wife. She escaped." Lila hadn't posted it, but it didn't matter. Everyone knew it came from her circle. Within hours, hundreds of strangers had opinions about my life. I wanted to respond, defend myself, show the footage. But my lawyer advised against it. "Let her dig her own grave," he said. "Public noise fades. Evidence doesn't." So I waited. A week passed. Jaden's exclusive interview dropped on a gossip podcast. He painted himself as the victim of a jealous husband, claiming Lila had left me long before he entered the picture. He said he felt unsafe and that I'd attacked him out of rage. The host nodded sympathetically while playing soft background music. That's how people rewrite history, one careful sentence at a time. Then came the twist. The following morning, one of Jaden's old collaborators leaked his messages, screenshots where he bragged about exposing her, calling it revenge for ghosting him. Another showed him admitting to staging the porch encounter. The same feeds that had roasted me now turned on him. His sponsorships disappeared overnight. His Twitch channel was banned for targeted harassment. Lila stayed quiet, pretending to be uninvolved, but the damage had already attached itself to her too. People began digging deeper. Old clips, private Discord chats, timestamps that contradicted her timeline. Within days, both their reputations were in flames. My lawyer called again. The DA's dropping the case. You're clear. It should have felt like victory, but it didn't. Just relief, a dull, tired kind. I hadn't won anything. I'd only survived what they'd built. A few weeks later, I received an envelope in the mail. Inside was a letter from Lila. The handwriting was shaky, uneven, like she'd written it while crying. She said she was moving away, that she'd lost almost everything: followers, income, friends. She blamed Jaden for using her name, but admitted, in a single line, that she'd started the fire. She wrote that she still dreamed about our old life, about the version of us before the screens. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the letter to my lawyer for the divorce record and packed the last of her things into a storage box. I left it at her sister's house with a note: final delivery. Please don't contact me again. After that, she was gone. It took months to rebuild the pieces she'd shattered. I switched jobs, moved to a quieter neighborhood, and stopped using social media entirely. For a long time, I didn't even tell people I'd been married. It was easier that way. But one evening, almost a year later, I was scrolling news headlines and saw her name trending again. Not for streaming this time. She'd filed a lawsuit against a content agency for emotional exploitation. The irony stung. The photo attached to the article showed her in a courtroom, thinner, older, still trying to frame herself as a victim of everyone else. The comments were brutal. Most people didn't believe her anymore. The internet had moved on from sympathy to scorn. In a way, that was her real punishment. The same platform she used to justify everything had finally turned against her. I closed the article and stared out my window for a long time. It's strange, the way digital life eats reality. One day, you're arguing over messages and clips. The next, your real house, your real job, your real face are on trial in front of strangers you'll never meet. I learned that truth isn't loud, it's patient. It waits until the noise burns itself out. A few months later, I started dating someone new, a woman named Mara, a coworker from the new office. She wasn't part of that world. She didn't live online. The first night we cooked together, she put her phone in another room and said, "You get me for the evening. No distractions." I didn't realize how much I'd missed that simple kind of peace. Sometimes, she asks why I don't like cameras in the house. I tell her it's a long story. She doesn't push. Every once in a while, I still get random emails, burner accounts sending links to clips, screenshots, gossip threads. I delete them all. The internet has an endless appetite for someone else's misery, and I refuse to feed it anymore. But there's one file I never erased: the original footage of Lila walking through that door, leading Jaden inside. Not because I want to watch it, but because it reminds me how real betrayal looks. Quiet. Ordinary. Without music or drama. Just two people crossing a line and pretending it doesn't exist. That's how I know I'll never miss her again. In the end, Lila lost the followers, Jaden lost the platform, and I lost the illusion that love can survive through a screen. But what I gained, finally, was silence. And in that silence, I started to feel human again.